On the morning of March 2nd, 1978, a gravedigger arrived at a small cemetery in Switzerland and found a hole in the ground. The coffin was gone. Charlie Chaplin, the most famous man in the world for most of the 20th century, had been dead for 68 days, and somebody had dug him up. Before we get to that, you need to understand who this man was, because the story of what happened to his body only makes sense if you understand the story of his life. And the story of his life is one of the strangest arcs in the history of fame. He was born in London in 1889. His mother was a music hall singer who would lose her mind before he was 10. His father was an alcoholic who was mostly absent and dead by 40. He grew up in workhouses. Actual Victorian workhouses, the ones Charles Dickens wrote about. Cold rooms. Hard labor. Children sorted by age. He entered one when he was 7 years old. And then, somewhere in the middle of that, he found the thing he was made for. By 1915, Charlie Chaplin was the most recognizable human being on the planet. Not the most famous in America, not the most famous in Europe, the most famous human being alive. The little tramp, the cane, the waddle, the bowler hat was understood in countries where nobody spoke English, where nobody had running water, where the idea of a movie theater was a sheet hung between two trees in a town square. He crossed every border that language couldn't, and then America decided it didn't want him anymore. In 1952, while Charlie Chaplin was on a ship to England for the London premiere of his new film, the United States Attorney General revoked his re-entry permit. J. Edgar Hoover had spent years building a file on him. That file was 1,900 pages long. His crime, suspected communist sympathies, never proven, never charged, just suspected. This was the McCarthy era, the same fear that killed Truman's healthcare plan, the same fear that turned the word socialism into a weapon. Chaplin was just another target. He found out his permit was revoked while he was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. He didn't go back. He settled in Switzerland with his wife Una. They had 8 children together. He made 2 more films. He grew old in a house overlooking Lake Geneva. And for 20 years, he didn't set foot in the country that had made him famous. Then, 1972 happened. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences invited him back to receive an honorary Oscar. He was 82 years old. He walked onto that stage, and the audience gave him a standing ovation that lasted 12 minutes. 12 minutes. The longest sustained applause in Oscar history. He stood there, this tiny old man with white hair, holding a small gold statue, and he couldn't stop smiling. 3 years later, Queen Elizabeth II knighted him. Sir Charles Chaplin. Born in a workhouse in Lambeth, knighted at 85. 2 years after that, on Christmas morning 1977, he died in his sleep at his home in Switzerland. His family said he went quietly. He was 88 years old. They buried him at the Corsier-sur-Vevey cemetery. A simple grave, a modest stone. And then, 68 days later, someone dug him up. The people who stole Charlie Chaplin's body were not masterminds. They were 2 mechanics, Roman Wardas, Polish, Gancho Ganev, Bulgarian, working at a garage in the Swiss countryside. Their plan was to call Chaplin's widow Una and demand 600,000 Swiss francs for the return of the body, about $400,000. They made the call. Una's response was reported in newspapers across the world. She said Charlie would have found it ridiculous, and she refused to pay. The police set up a phone tap, started monitoring payphones across the region. Wardas and Ganev kept calling. The police kept tracing. It took 11 weeks. On May 17, 1978, Police found the body buried in a field near Lausanne, about 10 miles from the original grave. Wardus and Ganev were arrested nearby. Wardus got 4.5 years of hard labor. Ganev got 18 months, suspended. The body was returned to the family. And this time, when they buried Charlie Chaplin, they poured a concrete vault around the coffin. The most famous body in Switzerland, sealed in concrete. That's the thing about Charlie Chaplin that the stolen body story keeps pointing back to. He spent his whole life being famous, genuinely, historically, world-reshapingly famous. The workhouse kid who became a knight. The man the FBI surveilled for 20 years because they were afraid of what he represented. The man who made a film mocking Hitler in 1940 when most of Hollywood was still deciding what to think. And at the end of it, his body was dug up by 2 mechanics who thought it was worth $400,000. His widow said he would have found it ridiculous. She was probably right. But also, she knew exactly who she'd married. A man who spent 60 years making the whole world laugh at the distance between how things are and how they're supposed to be. A grave robbed by amateurs. A widow who refused to pay. A body found in a field and reburied in concrete. He would have found it ridiculous. He also would have made it funny. This is the full story.